Hello again, Tech Spinners. My name is Glenn Wright, and I'm screencasting an introduction to my VisualSpinner3D editor app. As I mentioned in my last screencast, my long-term goal is to make it so non-programmers can create new routines for my simulator. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the editor to simulate the very first move in Ben Drexler's Comborific video. Let's take a look. What we're looking at in these first few seconds is a static pendulum versus extended pendulum hybrid. And in the second half of each extended pendulum, Drex spins an anti-spin pedal. We're looking at the video in a little mini app I wrote that lets you step through videos frame by frame. And it also lets you create time codes, which are like bookmarks for important moments in the video. Now, let's take a look at the editor. I've tried to make this interface as simple and intuitive as possible, but there's still kind of a lot going on. In the top left corner, we have a drag and drop panel for changing the positions of the props. The poi each have several nodes. On this red poi, you can see the head, the handle, and a third node that I'm calling the shoulder. Now the shoulder doesn't have to literally be the poi spinner's shoulder. It's just a tool for shifting the entire move in a direction of your choice. For now, we're going to keep the shoulder in the middle. To the right of the drag and drop panel, there's a simulator panel. Once we've built the routine, this is where we can actually see it spin. To the right of the simulator is a control panel for the moves. We'll see this panel fill in a bit once we start adding moves to our routine. Across the bottom, we see the routine itself divided into segments. These first two segments represent the starting positions of the props, and all the segments that will show up after that represent movements. Now let's see if we can't simulate the first move in Drex's video. So right away, we might notice that Drex's poi are not the same color as ours, so let's fix that using these color pickers. Second, his white poi starts in a different position than our white poi. So let's change that by dragging and dropping. Now let's add a segment of movement. We do that by hitting this plus button, which creates a new segment, and then by dragging the poi nodes to the next positions in the movement. Okay, so let's see how that looks in the simulator so far. It's short, but it's basically correct for the start of the move. Now let's add another segment. The editor takes a guess that we want to keep the props moving in the same direction, and in this case it guessed right. But then when we add the next segment, the editor guesses wrong. So we need to drag the poi nodes down to where we actually want them to go next. Add one more segment, and this time it guesses correctly again. Okay, so we do have a static pendulum versus extended pendulum hybrid now, but there are a couple of things wrong with it. First off, it doesn't have an anti-spin pedal in the second swing. We can see that the editor knows where it's supposed to start and what position it's supposed to end in, but it's going through the wrong path to get there. It's spinning clockwise across the outside when we want it to take a counterclockwise spin across the top. In order to fix that problem, all we need to do is hit this counterclockwise arrow button with a tooltip that says less clockwise and more counterclockwise. All right, so now we see it's fixed for that segment. Now we just need to do the same thing for the next segment. Okay, so this move actually looks almost correct, but there's one more little finishing touch we can add if we're perfectionists. Let's say we want to make the pendulum look a little bit more realistic and show it changing speed based on gravity. So the first segment should start in a motionless state, and then it should swing down quickly past the bottom. In order to do that, we click on the acceleration button. The button has a small arrow followed by a bigger arrow telling us that it's going to make the move start slower and end faster. And you can look over here to see that the move is going to start at speed 0 and then accelerate. So that looks really wonky. What we need to do is go through and make similar changes to both the hand and the head nodes for both props. Actually, for the white prop, we only need to do the head node because the hand node is all the way contracted. So now that segment looks right. Then the next move needs to do the opposite. It needs to start fast and end slow. So in order to do that, we hit the decelerate button, which has a big arrow followed by a small arrow. And now it shows us that we're going to be decelerating to speed 0. Then we can go ahead and do those same things to the next two move segments. And at this point, we have something that looks almost exactly like the first move in Drex's video. After we've done all this, we're going to want to save our work. So I hit this button up on the top left and give it a name like Drex Part 1. That saves the routine as a JSON file. Now, a JSON file is just plain text file. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense when we look at it, but you can see at least that it's telling you something about how these different nodes move. Now, let's go ahead and reload the web app from scratch. And then we can import our saved routine. And now you can see that it's been restored to the state that we saved it in. So that's about all for today. If you want to, you can experiment with the editor at this URL. I'll warn you, I'm just starting alpha testing, so it's missing a lot of features I hope to add in the future, and it's probably buggy and wonky in all kinds of ways I haven't realized yet. You can also try out a YouTube-based version of my timecoder at this URL if you want to step through videos frame by frame.